Resume my function as President of the Council. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Wang Yi, member of the Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the People's Republic of China.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, colleagues, China welcomes the convening of a high-level meeting on the Middle East, initiated by Arab countries. Under current circumstances, this meeting is highly relevant and necessary. I thank Prime Minister Golub for chairing today's meeting. We all listened carefully to the briefing of Mr. Secretary General and commend the efforts of Mr. Secretary General and the UN to mediate the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and promote peace in the Middle East. Mr. President, this round of Palestinian-Israeli conflict has lasted more than 300 days. The humanitarian crisis is unprecedented, and the tragedies of war are horrific. The people in Gaza are suffering under bombardment and blockade, and from hunger and disease. More than 40,000 civilians have lost their lives, and millions are displaced. Women and children are the first to suffer. Meanwhile, from Lebanon to Syria, from Yemen to Iran, spillovers of the crisis continue to spread. Regional hotspots are intertwined, the intensity spiral upward, and the situation in the Middle East is worrying. When the Middle East is unstable, the world is insecure. Faced with current difficulties and challenges, the international community cannot just look on, and the Security Council cannot sit idly by. China proposes 4 points. First, war and conflict must not continue. A comprehensive ceasefire must be achieved immediately. One more day of war means more civilian casualties and broken families. One more region where conflict spreads means more spillovers of crisis and hatred. We must act with the greatest sense of urgency to promote lasting ceasefire and comprehensive withdrawal of troops in Gaza. The parties to the conflict must fully implement the resolutions of the Security Council and make the decision of ceasefire, and not to take any adventurous moves that aggravate the tensions. Countries with important influence over the parties concerned should also take a sincere and responsible approach and play a more constructive role in promoting a ceasefire and effectively managing and preventing the spillover of crisis. The Lebanon-Israeli situation is worrying. The sovereignty of Lebanon should be upheld, and the people of Lebanon's safety should be protected. China opposes all moves to abuse force and aggravate tensions in the regions. We condemn all actions that harm innocent civilians. We urge the relevant parties to take immediate action to prevent further escalation of the situation and more casualties from being created. Second, we must not deviate from letting the Palestinian people govern Palestine and must work together for post-war governance. Gaza used to be where diverse civilizations met, but today it is engulfed in fighting. We must stick to the principles of Palestinians governing Palestine, and Palestinian-led and Palestinian-owned, and take a coordinated approach on post-war governance of Gaza. We should encourage all factions of Palestine to implement the Beijing Declaration on ending division and strengthening Palestinian national unity, support the Palestinian National Authority in boosting its authority and governance capacity, and achieving effective jurisdiction over all territories of Palestine, and support the conduct of specific governance affairs with the Palestinian people at the center. China calls for holding a meeting on post-war reconstruction and calls on the international community, countries in the region, and regional organizations to take an active part. Third, justice must not be absent. We must revive the two-state solution as soon as possible. Last week, the emergency special session of the General Assembly adopted with overwhelming majority the first resolution introduced by Palestine, demanding implementation of the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice and ending the illegal occupation of Palestinian territory by Israel. This is of historical significance. The resolution of the UN should not just be a sheet of paper, and the dream of the Palestinian people to build their own country or state cannot be negated. China urges relevant parties to immediately and comprehensively implement the resolution and to fulfill due international obligations. The Security Council should support Palestine in becoming a full member of the UN and to make new efforts for the two-state solution. China supports holding an international peace conference of larger scale, more authority, and more effectiveness, implementing a timetable and roadmap on the two-state solution in order to finally achieve the peaceful coexistence of the two countries of Palestine and Israel and harmony between the two peoples of Arabs and Jews. Fourth, international support must not be absent. We should uphold the peace and stability of the Middle East. The Middle East used to be a highland of civilization in the past. It should not become a low point of peace today. The international community should, on the basis of supporting the will of Middle East countries, support them in using their wisdom to settle hotspot issues in the region. Under the premise of mutual respect, fairness, and justice, we should work to create a security architecture that fits the history and reality of the Middle East and accommodates the legitimate concerns of all parties. We should support the UN peacekeeping operations in the region in effectively fulfilling their mandate to promote de-escalation and peace and development. The international community should step up humanitarian assistance and ensure the effective access of humanitarian supplies, support the UN or UNRWA in playing its important role. Countries yet to resume funding for UNRWA should resume funding as soon as possible. We should help countries in the Middle East, especially those affected by the conflict, to achieve sustainable development and cement the foundation for lasting peace. We should firmly oppose external pressuring and interference and help the Middle East get rid of the shadows of conflict and confrontation. Mr. President, China is a strategic partner of the Middle East countries. We have always been a builder of peace, a promoter of stability, and a contributor to development in the Middle East. China never interferes in the internal affairs of Middle East countries, never draws spheres of influence in the region, and never fish selfish geopolitical gains using hotspot issues. What we do is for restoring peace and stability in the Middle East to help the countries achieve stability and prosperity and deliver a happy life to the people there. War is a test of human conscience and justice, and peace requires the wisdom and determination of all countries. China stands ready to work with Arab and Muslim countries and all peace-loving countries that advocate justice to work for an early ceasefire, prevent spillover of the conflict, implement a two-state solution, and promote peace in the Middle East. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank His Excellency, Mr. Wang, for his statement. Now with the floor to His Excellency, Mr. Ahmed